Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to episode 2, season 2 of the Prosperous Yogini podcast. So, before I dig into today's episode, just a couple of things. First of all, please, if you haven't listened to episode 1, season 2, the question session, yes, it is, of course, one of my longer episodes, but put me in your earbuds, listen to me while you're walking the dog, making tea, going for a drive somewhere. It is one of my best question sessions to date, if I do say so myself. But I've had lovely feedback from those of you that have listened to it already, lovely feedback from those people who I answered those questions. And I think last week's session, like on two kind of levels, those questions that I was asked, I know they are the questions that come up for you too. And when we hear people having the same stuff, the same problems, the same things going on in their brains that happens to us, it makes us feel less alone. It makes us feel like, well, it's not just me. This is actually, this happens to Amy, this happens to this person. They're really successful in their business, but they are still navigating and working through all the same stuff that I am. The other thing is, it is a great example of, like, if you would like to work with me, and if you either come into one of my one-to-one offers, one of my group programs, come and hang out with me online, come and hang out with me in person, whatever, that is what it's like to work with me. That question session is a great example of how I am able to use all my years of experience in education, mentoring, adult education, practicing yoga teacher, self-employed, female entrepreneur, and then this little doorway that I feel like I have to, source, universe, whatever, just to know what is right for you. This all just plays into the mix as me as your mentor, as me as someone who can guide you, full of, as you know, I can do this, you can do this energy. So if you're like, if your ears pricked up on the one-to-one, I am full at the moment for one-to-one, but drop me an email, DM me on Instagram, and I'll put you on the wait list for the autumn. And in terms of how you can work with me right now, it's July 2024. Is it? No, it's June. It's June. I just lost 2 weeks then. It's June 2024, but in July, I have 2 epic offers. And they do relate to today's podcast. So before I finally dive into today's topic, I just would like to draw your attention to, if you live in Cornwall, and you are free on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, I've got another one of my in-person ideas to action group coaching workshop. These are small, bespoke. There's only maximum 10 places, because I do give you all opportunity for individual feedback, individual guidance from yours truly. Plus, I want to keep the group small. So, there's nothing wrong with larger networking type coaching workshops. But I prefer that smaller, more intimate vibe. So that's what you'll see from me and my Ideas to Action workshop. There's going to be a maximum 10 people at the beautiful Hotel Vara. So it has to be a nice venue, tick. And the Hotel Vara are also going to be providing our mid-morning coffee and patisseries, tick. I don't have to do any cooking. I'd literally, if I had to do cooking, I'd be having to offer refunds. Anyway, that is on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And at the time of recording this podcast, there are 5 places left, guys. So I'll put them a link to that in the show notes. But I know most of you listening to today's podcast don't live in Cornwall. I'm like, oh, that sounds nice, Amy. It is. It is an incredible workshop, and it's an incredible concept. The concept is, you've got something you'd like to do, call it an idea, but whatever, something you'd like to do. And either you've had a go at doing it and it hasn't worked out, or it's not fully gone, where you'd envisaged it would go yet, or you've just got this idea and you're completely stuck and you're not taking any action on it. So what we do is we look at the reasons why that happens, what is thought work, how to navigate your beautiful brain, work with the nervous system, not against it. And then we look at your individual idea. What is it? And we reverse engineer it. Where would you like to be? Okay, and what are those micro steps to that destination? Because that's one big reason why we get very stuck. You'll be like, I'd like to create an online course, and I'd like to have a 5-figure launch. I love that idea. I love that idea, but it will feel really big. How do I create an online course? How do I sell an online course? How do I build up to having that 5-figure launch? Maybe not initially, but one day when I understand the numbers and the metrics of the online world. So there is an example. So I couldn't leave that workshop, which I ran it in May. God, it was just magical. I couldn't leave that workshop just as an in-person event, because I know so many people in my world don't live in Cornwall. And so it's also existing as a 30-day group online program in July. Now, listen, I know, right? July and August, we go, it's the summer. If you've got kids like me, school summer holidays. If you live in Cornwall like me, it's like long days, getting warmer, sunny weather, beach days. But I know, after 14 years of being in this game, I know if you do some seed planting in July and August, if you do some seed planting looking forward to the autumn in July and August, then your business, your energy, your offers in the autumn are just so much more successful. You know, it doesn't, and because I've done it, it doesn't fully work out to go, I'm just going to shut everything down and forget about it. And then you get to September, the kids go back to school, you're like, you know, and I've been there for a couple of years, and I wanted to stop that. So I've learned, you know, here is my experience coming in here. I've learned to just take a little bit of time in July and August, not a lot, a little bit of time just to look ahead, to direct my gaze to the autumn and to plant those seeds. So July is that perfect time. And the online group program, Ideas to Action, is exactly the same thing. We'll be looking at, you know, what is an idea, how our ideas are created, why we struggle to actually take action on them. So that thought work. Then we'll be looking at your idea. You can submit your, you know, your idea, what it is you want to create, to me. I will give you personal feedback on that, reverse engineering your steps. And then our fourth and final week actually is nervous system regulation. You've got the idea, you know what actions you need to take. Let's bring that into our body so you are actually able to physically take those actions. 4-week group course. It's one live call a week, Tuesday evening at 8:30. There's a replay. There's 2 pre-recorded question sessions. So that's why I'm like, go back to last week's podcast, because that's a great example of how they're going to roll. And there's a closed private community space, so you can ask questions anytime. So it's really supportive. So actually, even if you live in Cornwall, if you like the idea of it being a bit more spread out, with a bit more ongoing support over this period of 30 days, then the Ideas to Action group online program is for you. And that is also in the links here on my podcast episode. Shall I get onto today's topic? Because guess what? It does relate to the concept of how we create, which is what my Ideas to Action, whether it's in person or online, is all about. So today's podcast title is How to Manifest. I'll be like totally upfront with you guys. I'm not a huge fan of that title, but I knew it would grab your attention. And then I also know, in terms of what, you know, people may be searching or may understand, they might be, yes, I want to know how to manifest. And today's podcast episode, yes, is inspired, of course, by the July offers I've got coming up. But actually, it's more inspired by a question I was asked last week, just in passing. It wasn't business related. And someone just said to me, Amy, how do I manifest my dream life? How do I manifest? And I thought I love this question. Of course, I've read a lot of views on like manifestation and creation. And I'll be really honest with you, I am a bit conflicted. When we take, or when we're manifesting all the time, we are the creators of our own reality. I, on some level, resonate with that. And on other levels, because of experiences that, say, people very close to me have had, I find it very, very difficult. And without sharing like my personal experiences, let's take this onto the wider stage. Let's take this onto like the macro. Like, if we look at the situation in Gaza or the situation in Ukraine, and we think of those families that are caught up in war zones, right? We could never possibly say they are the creators of their own reality. You subconsciously chose to be there. Now, I can resonate with the theory, but I can resonate with what actually it's our collective, our human collective energy that are the creators of these events, which isn't easy. It isn't easy, but actually for us to say, to look at these horrific events in the news and start to consider that, what's my contribution to that? Because we would never, ever, 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 ever want that to be happening. But actually, it helps me in the sense, well, if this is a result, if these big events on the world stage are results of collective manifestation, enough energy collecting together to produce those results, which we can all agree are just like, no, let's just say, no, we don't want this anymore, then actually I have a responsibility to collective, and I have like, individually, I can be in a place of sending out love, my actions being from a place of peace, how moving away from fear, moving away from it's their fault, it's them and us, and more into a place of forgiveness, love, healing energy. So that is on that level how I wrangle with we are the creators of our own reality. But I've had some friends have some horrendous things happen to them that I'm telling you now, they did not manifest. And I also do subscribe to sort of like, actually, to be honest, this 80-20 rule, which I'm going to talk about today, that we're human beings. We are hurtling through a little blue planet on space. And there are sometimes external circumstances that happen to us that are beyond our control. And there are some things internally within the body, the system just malfunctions. And again, that's beyond our control. Whereas the deep and the hardcore manifestors will say, well, disease, illness in your body is a manifestation of something you've created. And without going into too much detail, I've had friends that have had children with childhood cancer, and I actually just cannot subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to this theory, right? There are some things that are within my control, and there are some things that are beyond my control. And the best thing, but it's the hardest thing that I can do to those things that are beyond my control, is to accept that. And I think for me, how do I manifest? I manifest from that place of knowing there are things that I can control and there are things that are beyond my control. And I have to accept that I'm human, having a human experience in a human system, this physical body, that your computer can go wrong sometimes, right? The system in your computer sometimes says no. Sometimes the human system goes wrong and it's beyond your control. And sometimes there are external circumstances that are happening to you that are beyond your control. And of course, all we have control of is our response to those external circumstances. And those responses, we have to allow ourselves to be human. All right. So there's my take on manifestation, because I am very conflicted by it. I cannot go all in on the complete, you're the complete creator of your own reality. You're in complete control, because it conflicts so deeply with some of the experiences of my friends. That said, let's take it to you and your business. I'm going to tell you now, you are the creator of the good, the bad, the ugly. I like to frequently remind myself, I am the creator of my own shit. I'm my own boss. And again, there are some external circumstances, and we can look back in the last 4 years and really point to them. So, for example, COVID was, to an external circumstance that would have happened to all of us and happened to our businesses. We had an ability to respond, but if you had energetically coming into the mix of that response. Guys, I am just, my mic's there go. Sorry, it's the sound dropped out then. So for example, I had a completely in-person business, no cash. And when COVID hit, but I had been working now for 10 years plus. So I had the experience of adapting to start with. I had some rock solid offers and a good audience, or I had nothing existing in online. I also had a husband who was a school teacher, a secondary school teacher, and actually he was and the first part of COVID, he was at home all the time. So I had 2 young children, but I also had my husband at home helping care for the children. So I had an opportunity to very quickly build my online business, and I had an audience to sell it to. That would have looked very, very different if, say, my husband was a paramedic, if my husband was a care worker in an old people's home. My business wouldn't have adapted as it did. And that's just a great example of like manifestation is a combination, and absolutely is co-creation. We are involved in the act of creation, but there are external energies and events, like if you've got young children, if you've got adult children, if you've got parents that are aging and not very well, if you've got loved ones that you're caring for, these are energies that will take your attention at times elsewhere. And I think when we start to be more compassionate and understanding of that, we give ourselves a little bit more grace on, why haven't I done this yet? And why doesn't this exist yet? And why are, my yoga classes not full? Why doesn't my online course, set up yet and selling? And why haven't I posted on Instagram this week? All of those shoulds, when we start to step back and take a wider view, well, hang on a minute, where's my energy being directed this week? So bringing it down to actually how you manifest the stuff you do have control of. I've got this 80-20 rule. I think it's like, I just apply this to lots of things in my life. Like 80% of the time, I try and eat relatively healthy. 80% of the time, I try not to drink alcohol. 80% of the time, I try to exercise right. But you gotta allow 20%. You gotta allow yourself to be human. I am 80% in control of events, but I'm still this little dot hurtling through space on a blue planet. I do think the 80-20 rule applies to so many things. And it also applies to how we create, how we manifest, because that word manifest, I try not to use manifestation. I much prefer create. How do I create? How do I bring things that are existing in the non-physical into the physical? And that for me is when I'm talking about manifesting. When I am manifesting something, that's what I mean. When I say, well, I want this to happen, I want to manifest this, then I'm like, well, this is something that exists in the non-physical. I'm thinking about it. So it has an energy, but it doesn't yet have physical form. And how I manifest is take the idea, whatever it is, and then think about, reverse engineer those steps to bring it into physical form. I use this analogy a lot. Like, let's imagine the idea is you're going to fly from the UK to Australia, and you're at UK airport, and this is the start of your idea. And if you were at the start of the UK airport and you were like, I can't believe I'm in Australia yet, why hasn't this happened for me yet? Do you know what? I'm just going to go home. That is a great example of what we do. I don't know how, or I'm in the UK airport, I don't know how to buy a train ticket, I don't know where checkout is, I don't have the money yet to buy my plane ticket to Australia. I'm going to go home and forget this idea that I ever had that I was going to go on this journey to Australia. This is such a good analogy, because this is exactly what we do. I'd like to do this. I don't know how. I'm not good enough. Oh, I would need this level of money, this level of investment to make that happen. Oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take any action. And the result is you don't go to Australia. Your idea is that I did some things on social media this week about ideas, and I love this concept that ideas are just energies just floating all around us, all existing in the unseen. Pam Gregory says the unseen is 90%. I believe everything Pam Gregory said, so I'm going to go with that. And we just sort of like either bump into them, you know, we go, oh, that's a good idea. That's one of those bumping into moments. Or we're in a place where we're open enough to receive them and they come to us because I think they come to us because they're meant for us, or they come to us because maybe we're meant to pass them on. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But we had this idea, and you know, if it's meant for us or not, if we don't act on it, then it just goes back out into the unseen. Someone else will pick it up, and then you're in that place where it's like, oh, I thought of that. Why did I do that? So, how do we create? And when I say create, I mean, how do I manifest my idea into physical form? How do I do that thing that like, and the only way I can describe it is like this thing that tugs at your heartstrings. I really want to, or this idea that rattles around in your brain when you're off on a daydream. You know, when you're imagining that you would do this and then you would do that, and you're imagining yourself doing that. How do we take those things, right, that are tugging at the heartstring, niggling around in our head, and we go, oh, I couldn't. And whatever the reason it is that you are telling yourself you couldn't, whatever it is. And sometimes, like, let's go back to those external events. Like, sometimes there is an external event happening where you have to say, right now, this is a great idea. I don't have to release it back out into the world. I can hold it dear in my heart. I can park it. So like, this is a great idea. Write it down somewhere, park it, and come back to it when I am energetically able to bring it into physical form. But a lot of the time it's like, not the external circumstances, like the reason why you can't bring your idea to life, your mind, the mindset is blocking you. So this is why I will say creation is 80% energy, 20% action. Denise Dutton Thomas goes like, I think even further, like, you know, mindset is everything, 100%. The rest you can Google. Now, when I talk about mindset, I do mean like, oh, my mind is saying I'm not ready, I haven't got time, I can't afford it, I'm not good enough. There's people doing this better than I am. What will people say if I do this? I could go on. But beyond the mind is the nervous system. When I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about the energy of your body, because your nervous system is making judgments like all the time. Is this safe to do? Or is this unsafe to do? And like, is it safe to do? Yeah, go ahead and do it. Is it unsafe to do? It's then, wow, no, don't take action. Hell, stop. Or there's an uncertain. I'm uncertain, but I think this is safe. I'm going to give it a go. And that's the place you need to be in to manifest, to create. You cannot be in a hell no, I don't think this is a safe place. Okay. And really, to call in anything new, to call in change, you can't just be, unfortunately, like, oh, this is all just what I'm used to. You've got to go into that place of, I'm not totally sure. This may go wrong, but I'm not going to die. Let's go for it. Place. And that's the stretchy place. That's the place of expansion. That's the place of growth, right? That's the place of change. But what's interesting about this place is your nervous system can't be there all the time either. Your nervous system has to go into periods of actually rest, parasympathetic, yin, intuition, receiving, and then it's like, okay, let's just go and do this bit. I'm just going to go do it. That the pain of not doing it anymore is greater than the pain of inaction. Why didn't I do this sooner? I can say all of this stuff to you because this is the stuff that happens to me. But this is the dance of the nervous system, which for me is one of the biggest sort of like you're seeing it being spoke about a lot more now, but it's been one of the big conversations that have been missing when we say, feel the fear and do it anyway. Mindset is everything. Like, no. And I prefer, when it comes to mindset, to use the word thought work, which is a phrase that I'm going to be upfront now, stolen from Jen Sincero. Her book, You Are a Badass at Making Money, it's like my Bible. Thought work, how do I recognize, pay attention to my thoughts? How do I question my thoughts? Is this true? Coming away from the emotions and looking at the facts, the data, and then using that to reprogram my brain into a thought that allows me to take action. And that for me is how we navigate mind stuff, right? But alongside supporting that work has to be work that supports my nervous system to take action, has to be work that gives my nervous system opportunity to rest, to reset, to tone down from sympathetic, to have those moments in parasympathetic, so I can then come back into sympathetic, come back into action, come back into that feels a bit scary action. I can come into that phrases and create. And that is how you manifest. Thank you very much. All the people who up to date have said what manifestation is. That's what it is. And I won't talk probably a lot about this on Instagram because it's just one of those real loaded topics for me. For me, manifestation is one of those loaded topics because of personal experiences, because of my friends. I will never ever peddle the message that you are the total creator of your reality. 80-20, darling. And then sometimes the statistics are different because there's external shit going on beyond your control, because ultimately we are just little human beings on the blue dot hurtling through space. We're human beings having a human experience, but the creation of our ideas into physical things come from that soul level, come from that unseen level. So bringing your idea into life comes from, here's your idea, and then you've got to pay attention to why you're not doing it, right? You've got to confront the shit that you tell yourself, right? And you've got to assume that everything you tell yourself is a lie, that everything you tell yourself isn't true, which is not easy. This is not easy work, right? And I'm going to tell you now, I am just giving you a practice. I'm not telling you you'll do this and one day you don't do this anymore. This is it. This is it now. It's like your yoga practice. Those of you yoga practitioners, we don't go, okay, well, one day I'll be able to stop my yoga practice. We don't ever say that. It's the same with this. Okay, so you pay attention to your thoughts, and all those ones that are telling you no, stopping you from creating, assume that all of them are lie, question them, look for alternative evidence, draw deep down into data and facts rather than those emotional judgments that you've made. I'm not good enough, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, that person's better than me, I've not been doing it long enough, whatever, right? Go into all of that stuff, confront it. You've got to sit with it, because it is much easier to ignore this stuff, I know, but you've got to sit with it and you've got to begin to question it, right? At the same time, 1 restorative yoga pose a day, breath work, walking through the grass barefoot. For me, surfing, getting out in nature. Join my Substack, Energy, Mindset, Money and More. I'll put the link in the show notes to that. Literally, if you love this podcast and you're not on my Substack, why? Because it's like an extra podcast episode a week, 5-minute video on how to regulate your energy so you can create whatever you want. Regulate your energy, pay attention to your thought work. There's your 80%. 20% is action, but don't just focus on final destination. Yeah, absolutely. Eyes on the prize. Where do I right now want to be heading? And I say that because there is no final destination. You think, well, when I'm here, when I've done this, this is the place I want to get to and I've made it. Don't work like that, because what happens is you begin to expand, and then you'll have moments where you need to contract, and then you expand a bit more, and then you contract. So what is the currently the place I would like to get to, and what are my steps that I need to take to get there. And then the last thing I'd like to say is, can you give yourself time? What has to happen by Friday? What has to pay your bills? What has to put food on the table? And what can you allow there to be time for? Because this for me is the biggest thing, that most people that I work with are frustrated because they're not made it yet. And they're missing all the micro achievements that they've so far had, because they're judging everything against that final destination. I have not got to Australia yet, but I've saved up half the money for my ticket, but I haven't got to Australia yet. What we focus on expands. You decide what to focus on. Okay. That is your control. That is why, to some extent, you are the creator of your own reality. You decide what to focus on. Focus on the lack. I've not made it to Australia yet. Focus on the abundance, the joy. I have saved half the money for my plane ticket to Australia. I am halfway there. I am further ahead than I was when I had no money to buy a plane ticket to Australia. All right, my darlings. So I'm going to just wrap up today's episode by saying the other reason why this stuff is so hard is it's damn near impossible to navigate this stuff by yourself. You need to get yourself in a group of people where you all cheerlead each other on, guided by someone who is going to help you navigate this stuff. Guess what? That's me. July, one more time. In Cornwall, Truro, 3rd of July, 5 places left. Get in that room. 2nd of July, starting 2nd of July for the whole 30 days. So the remainder of July, my Ideas to Action group program, get in that online room. I don't really care which room you decide to get into, but stop trying to do it alone. Neither of those two offers are my higher price expensive offers. The Ideas to Action workshop in person in Truro is £85, and the online group program is £195, but there's a 4-month payment plan of £49 per month. Okay, they are like my most affordable ways that you can work with me on this stuff. Okay, yes, you could wait until next time, but I would pay attention to that thought, because we spend our lives in the waiting room. And when I told myself I am not waiting anymore, things started to change. All right, my darlings, thank you so much for listening today, and I will see you all next week.